Thank you very much. You just heard from Norm Ornstein. There's this competition for who is the smartest person in Washington, and Norm Ornstein and Tom Mann are like neck and neck and always have, and the best thing is they're best friends, but both of them are just incredibly smart people and people who really just study the institution of Congress and how Washington works in a way that's just absolutely amazing. So I'm glad I got a chance to catch the tail end of what Norm had to say. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed coming. I was so excited when Senator Udall picked this up because when I came to this thing probably 5, 6, 7 times when Senator Allard was running the Capitol Conference, and I always enjoyed it. And so I'm glad that this is something, a really useful, important thing that's been continued. I'm afraid that if I spend any more time in your state, I'm going to have to start paying taxes there. I had a speech in Colorado Springs 2 days ago, and then about a week for a chemical group, and then about a week or so ago for the American Cotton Shippers Association had their meeting in Denver. And I think it's because they're all from the South and they wanted to go someplace that was cooler and nicer. But I don't, those of you who are from Denver probably get this, but wow, the Four Seasons is a very weird place on Thursday nights. I hear some of the young people, it's apparently that's where all the hotties, young men and women in Denver go on Thursday nights, and it was pretty amazing. And a short, fat, married guy like me had no place there whatsoever. But anyway, it was quite something. I guess there are other places that they go in Denver on other nights of the week, but Thursday nights at the Four Seasons, wow. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Actually, I was thinking that one of the last times I went to the Broadmoor for a speech, that what are those, the purple jacket ladies? Red hat and purple. Yeah, they were having a meet at the Broadmoor. That was a very different group than anyway, but they seem to be having a wonderful time at lunch at the Broadmoor. Anyway, let's talk about politics. When I'm happy, when I'm in my element, is when I think I see, okay, I understand what's going on in this election. I've figured it out. I know, and nobody else does, and I can show how smart I am. And there have been some times when that's actually happened. I mean, we were really ahead of the curve in '06 for the Democratic wave and really ahead of the curve in 2010 for the Republican wave. If that's what you're expecting today, you might as well leave, because this election, I think this presidential election, is going to be so close. I don't have the faintest idea who's going to win it. And I think we're looking at an election that sort of, if you want to compare in the zone, on one end is the 2000 Bush-Gore that obviously couldn't get any closer. And then you've got the 2004 George W. Bush, John Kerry election that as of the Wednesday, Thursday before the election, nobody really knew who was going to win. And, President Bush ended up edging out Senator Kerry 51-48. But boy, that was a close call. And you remember the exit polls actually were pointing towards Kerry winning. I think we're headed towards a presidential race that's sort of right in that zone, that either side could win it by a point or two, 3 tops, but probably not 3, but that's something that's just going to go absolutely to the wire. What makes it worse is that I think the Senate is probably headed to basically the same thing. In the Senate, I'm just going to kind of sum everything up and then back in and get a little bit more into detail. In the Senate, as you know, right now, Democrats have 53 seats and Republicans have 47. And so Republicans need a 3-seat net gain to get to 50 if they win the presidency and the new vice president breaks the tie, or 4 seats if they don't win the presidency. So it's 3/4 of what Republicans need. Right now, we're looking at Republicans probably picking up a minimum of 2, a maximum of 5. 3 is the most likely number, which would put the Senate at 50-50 with whoever's the new vice president or the old one coming back, breaking the tie. And it's like, wow, okay. And the only thing I could say with any degree of confidence is it's pretty likely that Republicans are going to hold on to the House, but they are probably going to lose some seats. And so right now they've got like 56% of all the House seats. Democrats need a 25-seat net gain. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll get into the details of why. But it's very likely that Republicans are going to lose some seats, but the number looks very likely to stay under 25. So we're, at least on 2 of the 3 sort of big electoral elements this year, presidential and U.S. Senate. Wow, we're looking at something, that's going to be or pretty close to a photo finish. Now, I think it's interesting. If Gallup did a poll last month where they asked people, cross-section of Americans, who do you think is going to win the election? And 56% said President Obama, and 36% said Mitt Romney, and I'm not sure what in the world was up with the others. I guess they didn't know. But 56-36. The last time I went on Intrade a couple of days ago, the online betting site, it looked. President Obama, about a week or so ago, he was at like 57% chance of winning. It's since dropped down. It was running in the high, 53 point something or other the last time I checked. And I don't really care what Intrade thinks because to me, it's a bunch of people sitting in their boxer shorts in upstairs bedrooms reading blogs way too much. But the thing about it is a quantification of the conventional wisdom. And so I think it serves a utility of saying, what is the conventional wisdom? And so the conventional wisdom in this election, I think pretty clearly is it's going to be a competitive election, but that President Obama is going to win. And I'm just I don't know, because I think every metric I look at is pointing towards a photo finish. And it's interesting, when I talk to some of the top Democratic and Republican pollsters in the country off the record, they're expecting this thing to go way down to the wire. When you talk to sort of the top operatives on each side, there is no confidence, you get off the record, there's no bravado there. They see this thing going right into the zone. And so let me sort of talk about this election. I think part of the conventional wisdom is it's kind of like how generals fight the last war, where I think too many people look at elections through the prism of whatever was going on during the last election. And the thing about it is, what happened in 2008 couldn't be much more different than what's going on right now in 2012. I mean, think about what 2008 was about. One party had the White House for 8 years, for 2 consecutive terms, and we know from history that when either party has the White House for 8 years in a row, the odds are very high they're going to lose it. That a time for change sentiment builds up over 2 terms, over 8 years of one party in the White House. Since the end of World War II, only one time has that varied, and that was after 8 years of President Reagan, and that was obviously a fairly atypical situation, and Mike Dukakis was a fairly weak candidate, and so that conspired to kind of break a historic pattern. But the pattern is 8 years of one party in power, let's give the other side a shot. And so the thing is, the odds were kind of against Republicans no matter what. But to me, once September 15th occurred, once Lehman Brothers fell, credit markets seized up, stock market went into a plummet, it became clear the economy was going straight down in the toilet, that election was effectively over. That what little chance that John McCain or any other Republican might have had in 2008 just completely evaporated. So if you look at just those circumstances, not just leaving out Barack Obama for a second, you look at it and say, wow, that election, kind of the fix was in. Now, I don't want to take anything away from President Obama's victory in 2008. I would just simply argue that what was really impressive was beating Hillary Clinton for the nomination. I mean, that's the one where, wow, I'm impressed. The other ended up being kind of a foregone conclusion, but that was the big win, not the general election. And we think about sort of what was the 2008 election about. It was about hope, it was about change, it was generational, It was about aspiration. It was about inspiration. It was about making history. All kinds of really, really lofty, big things. And none of those are sort of the dominant factors in this election. And that doesn't mean that President Obama is going to lose re-election, but it means that what got him elected is completely different from what either will get him reelected or will come up short and won't get him reelected. But the dynamics just couldn't be more different. The way I view when an incumbent president is running for reelection is that the default setting is it's a referendum on the incumbent. It's, do we want to renew a president's contract for another 4 years, yes or no? Now, it can stray away from that, but that's where it always starts off, and sometimes where it stays for the duration. And that's one reason why when you're looking at polls, first of all, a year out before a presidential election, all the polls are absolutely meaningless. I mean, they just don't mean squat. Starting about 11 months, 10 months, 9 months before an election, the numbers that actually start having some pretty decent predictive value that get better every month is the job approval rating for the president. That's the number that has some reliability early on. And the one that doesn't really early on is the trial heat, the Smith versus Jones, or in this case, Obama-Romney, because they really know one of them, and they generally don't know so much the other one. And so if you're going to look at in the early phases of the year, if you're going to look at the trial heat figures, you might want to look at the president's number, but the challenger's number is fairly irrelevant because there's just a lot of familiarity, either positive or negative, that's going to build up, but it's just not a particularly useful number. Now we're sort of in the phase where the approval rating still matters enormously, and where the trial heat figures are starting to be more meaningful. So we could kind of look at both. But think of that, and keep in mind this sort of referendum idea, is the approval rating. We have it's a pretty simple, and this is simplistic, but it's also absolutely true. Since the end of the post-World War II era, every single president that had a job approval rating, let's just say a Gallup job approval rating, going into Election Day, every single one of them that was 50% or higher, they all won, no problem. 50 or higher, win. And then pick a number in the mid-40s, call it 46. Every one that had a Gallup job approval rating of 46 or lower going into Election Day, they all lost. And so what that creates is this 47, 48, 49 kind of jump ball territory that can go either way. And the last one, you know, you'd remember there was President George W. Bush. Last Gallup poll going into Election Day, his job approval rating was 48%, and he won 51-48. We won enough of the undecideds to kind of get over that hump. But that 47, 48, 49 is the area that can go either way. So where's the president right now? Now, there is a danger in looking at polls, and Republicans do this, Democrats do this, liberals do this, conservatives do it, moderates and independents less so, but everybody does it to a certain extent. Cherry picking polls. You look for the poll that tells you what you want to see happen, and that's obviously the most accurate poll. And any poll that tells you something that you would rather not see happen, that's obviously a poll that has methodological flaws. And there are some very predictable people, political scientists and others on the left and on the right, that you can count on picking apart any poll that shows their side losing. It's just as predictable as the day is long. And so to guard against this cherry picking, one thing I recommend people do, if you don't have a lot of time, you can just click on, there are two widely available entities out there that average all the major national polls. Now, all polls aren't equal, and some are better than others, and there's some polls I put a lot of credibility in, and others I don't. But the way to kind of cut through any prejudice whatsoever is to look at the averages. Now, one of them is pollster.com. It was founded by a Democratic pollster. It's affiliated with the Huffington Post, which is obviously over on the left. The other is realclearpolitics.com, which is founded by a couple guys that were Republican commodity traders in Chicago, and they love politics, and so they created an aggregation site of their own, and they started doing the average themselves. Just look at the two of them, and they never say exactly the same thing, but you just sort of watch what the two of them say, and you have a general idea of where things are going. And they both do job approval, and they do the overall horse race. And this is probably a day or so old, or actually I got a chance to check pollster.com, but didn't have time to check the other one. You know, right now, in terms of job approval, the president is at 46.8%, caught 47. On pollster.com was at 47.8, caught 48 on Real Clear Politics, and his job approval rating on the Gallup poll, which is the other one that comes out every day, and so I put a lot of stock in it, is 47%. So all these are pointing to President Obama basically being in that jump ball zone that's out there. And then if you care on the other side, the trial heat figures, right now, President Obama has he's ahead of Romney in the Real Clear Politics, 47 to 45.4. So it's like 1.6 percentage point lead. And that was a day or two ago. The brand new, as a couple of minutes ago, pollster.com was 47.4 to 43.9, so 3.5 points, which is actually kind of wider than it's been in a while. And the Gallup was 1 point last time I checked, 1 point up for Obama, but it might have moved a digit. Actually, but one thing now these numbers, they're daily, they dance around, they bounce around, they have some statistical noise. One thing that I like to look at is some of the longer run where they average a whole long period of time. And so, for example, for the month of May, the Gallup interviewed 15,678 people, and the Obama approved, disapproved was 47 approved, 46 disapproved. So boom, right in that swing zone. And for the last 3 weeks, 9,000 registered voters. The race was tied, Obama-Romney, 46 each. And so, you know, all of these sort of metrics I'm looking at, man, they're really pointing into the zone. Now, let's look at this from the president's standpoint, and then we'll look at it from the Romney standpoint. What would worry me if I'm the president's campaign is, number one, you think, how did he win last time, and can he replicate that performance this time? Now, keeping in mind, he won by 7 percentage points last time, so he's got a cushion. I mean, he can lose some. He could lose, you know, a decent amount before he loses. But the thing is, it was like a stool with 4 legs. And the first leg of the stool was independent voters, 29% of the vote. And Obama won by 8 percentage points, 52-44. Now, you know, that's obviously pretty good. Now, can the president replicate that performance? Right now, for the month of May, the president's approval rating among independents was 44. And so not on that track really to 52, 44 among just independents. And among independent voters in the Gallup, 3 weeks of polling together, among independents, Romney was ahead 43-40. Now, you know, that's still pretty close, can dance around and stuff, but what that tells me is that independent leg of the stool for the president, it's not where it was, and it looks problematic. Okay, the second leg of the stool is 18 to 29-year-olds. Big, you know, you remember the passion, the excitement, the fervor that was out there last time, and the president got 66% of the vote among 18 to 29-year-olds. Now, does he need 66% to win again? No, he doesn't need 66, but he needs to kind of get up there in the neighborhood. But more importantly, he needs a very, very, very strong turnout among those 18 to 29-year-olds, because forever and ever, we had always heard that young voters were going to turn out and vote, and they never, ever did until 2008, when they really, really did. And so he needs get up close to the 66 and for them to have to really vote. Well, for the month of May in the Gallup poll, the president's approval rating was 57%. So that's underperforming the 66 some. And then among 18 to 29-year-olds, the president was ahead 56-34. So that's not really, it's not on track to get to the 66. But the more important thing is these 18 to 29-year-old voters did not look particularly likely to vote. One of the things that Gallup did, and the NBC and the Wall Street Journal have done the same thing using a slightly different methodology, but in the case of Gallup, they ask, are you definitely planning on voting? And among everybody, all registered voters, 79% said, of registered voters, not of everybody, but 79% of registered voters say, I'm definitely voting, 79%. But it was only 60% of 18 to 29-year-olds said they were definitely voting. That's kind of a warning sign. And to give you an example, another example, by party, 88% of all Democrats said they would definitely vote. 90% of all Republicans said they would definitely vote, and only 71% of independents. So the independents vote a little bit lower numbers, but they're the swing voters, because that basically 90% of Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat, 90% of Republicans are going to vote for the Republican. So it's the others that really matter. But that 18 to 29-year-old group, do they turn out? That's a really big question. And in both NBC, Wall Street Journal, and Gallup polling, real strong question marks there. The third leg of the stool is Latino voters. And this is one where the president got 67% of the Latino vote, and they turned out in unusually strong numbers. Right now, as of May, for the month of May, the president had a 58% approval rating among Latino voters, so still underperforming there. And also, the Latino turnout definitely vote was 63, so it was better than 18 to 29-year-olds, but for example, compared to African Americans, 78. So 78 to 63. Obviously, African American voters are a lot more motivated than Latino voters are, or than white voters that were up in the low 80s, 82, 83, something like that. So third leg of the stool, I should say, kind of wobbly there. And then the fourth leg is African Americans, and that's fine for the president. I mean, he's gonna, I guess the job approval rating was 87%. He got 95 last time, but he'll, there is every sign in the world that leg of the stool is gonna hold up fine. So basically you have 4 legs of the stool, and 3 of them look a little wobbly for the president. And again, this doesn't say he loses, but what it means is, wow, that cushion, that 7-point cushion in the election, not secure at all. But let me throw out one other demographic group, and that is, it's 39% of all the voters last time, non-college educated whites, or what we used to call blue-collar whites. Now, John McCain won them 58 to 40. And, there's no way in the planet President Obama was ever going to win the blue-collar white vote, the non-college educated white vote. But at the same time, he does need to get pretty close to that 40, or it'd be nice for him to get that 40 so he doesn't have to make up for it among some other group. And so where's the president's approval right now among non-college educated whites? Only 35%. Wow, that's sort of not quite on track to the 40. And Gallup actually they don't release that specific break in terms of the trial heat, but I have a strong suspicion I know where that is, sort of in that same sort of territory. And so all of these, remember the Lost in Space TV show, and remember that robot when something bad was about to happen, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger. There's a lot of that out there, reason why if I were a Democrat, I would not be overconfident right now.